Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby bringing you a quick tank review, this time of the Tier 9 British heavy tank, the Conqueror. Many of you will have seen my Carnarvon review, and this is the evolution of the Carnarvon. This tank continues many of the Carnarvon's traits, so I recommend that you take a look at my Carnarvon review before you take a look at my Conqueror review. To sum up this tank in a nutshell, it's a quite weakly armoured Tier 9 tank that has a monster gun, an absolute monster Tier 9 gun. This tank has got amazing aim time, amazing accuracy, and a great rate of fire. Use this tank if you like to value doing damage to the enemy over survival. Let's take a look at its stats. So we can see that the tank has got 1,950 hit points, which is very high for a Tier 9 tank, 30 higher than the E75 as an example. The tank weighs 66 tons when fully loaded and has got 950 brake horsepower. To give you an idea, this gives you a 14.3 brake horsepower to ton ratio, which is higher than the E75, which is around about 13. This tank has got a fairly nice speed limit of 34 kilometers an hour. That extra 4.3 kilometers an hour comes in very handy over such a tank as the E75. Which basically means that it has the same kind of speed as an M103. The traverse of this tank is 26, which is alright. It's more mobile than the 75 as an example, which has 21 degrees a second. Its hull armor is very poor. The only way that you're going to be bouncing using your front is if you're slightly angled and they hit your upper plate. If they hit your lower plate at distance, really it's going in. And your side armor is nearly worthless with 51mm of side armor and 38mm of hull armor. If you get a chance, fire HE rounds through the back of the Conqueror and you're really going to mess it up. Now its turret armor is not exceptional. It's got quite a large weak point on top of the tank taken advantage of. It's got 152mm of turret armor, which can be penetrated through the cheeks. Even at ranges, these angles don't seem to matter against other Tier 9 tanks that you might want to be engaging, such as M103s. The side of the turret is very flat and only has 89mm of armor, and it only has 70 at the back. So basically, just like an M103, you have a very large rear of your turret and you really don't want to expose it that much. One thing I will highlight is that the overall poor side and rear armor means that getting hit by artillery in this tank is very bad. I've been 2 hit by Hummels in the Conqueror. Really, if the enemy artillery land on any part of the upper plate of your tank, you're in a lot of trouble. Enough about the armor, let's look at why this tank is the Conqueror. So I'm showing you the Conqueror gun on the right and the M103 gun on the left. Now the M103 is very comparable to the Conqueror, so that's why I'm showing you. Maybe you've got the M103 and you're thinking, hey, maybe I just want to get the Conqueror. Is it going to play the same? Well, take a look at the gun stats. We can see it's got a much better rate of fire of 5.71 over 5.36. Its penetration is the same with standard ammo, and this tank fires APCR currently for 352mm rather than the M103, which fires heat for 381, so that can actually be better at engaging angled plates than the heat rounds. The tank does 400 damage per shot like the M103, and its HESH rounds, as I will explain in a second, do 515, which are the same as the high explosive rounds of the M103. Now, this is where it really starts to get interesting for the Conqueror. 0.33 accuracy compared to the 0.37 of the M103. That is some extreme accuracy for a 120mm gun. It really allows you to punish weak points on the enemy even at range. And 1.9 aim time compared to 2.3, that is massive. That's like a medium tank aim time. You can pull off such clutch shots in this tank, which hopefully I'm going to be showing you in the gameplay. So just a quick word on the HESH ammo that this tank can fire. As you can see, the HESH ammo is 1,200 credits a shot, so it's not as expensive as the premium rounds. However, it provides quite an interesting opportunity for the Conqueror. As we can see here, the penetration with HESH is 120 average, ranging between 90 and 150, and the damage ranges from 386 up to 644. The HESH also has a splash radius of 2.42 meters, so that is also beneficial if you hit very near the target, and sometimes you can still do a little bit of damage to them. I like to keep 6 HESH rounds in this tank because the excellent rate of fire and maneuverability sometimes allows you to engage the rear of other Conquerors, for example, the rear of other American tanks and British tanks, which have got very, very low armor, and the HESH will go through the flat surface nearly every time, almost wrecking their tank if you can put 2 shots into it. The DPM increase that you get is absolutely massive, and you can completely surprise tanks, even Foshes for example. You get up behind a Foch 155 and you could put 2 shots into this and it's going to be absolutely reeling from the damage that you've done. And the fact that the rounds are not even that much more expensive makes it even sweeter. I definitely recommend taking a few Hess shells for tactical opportunity. So without further ado, let's take a look at how this beast performs in some gameplay. So here we go, we're playing in the Conqueror on El Haluf. I'm going to try and showcase this tank for you hopefully in this game. Bit of annoyance at the beginning, that 1946 is usually where I like to go. Then we have a 5100 go into this position, and I can't get my clutch shots off. Really, that 5100 does not have enough gun depression to be shooting down there. The fact that he's sitting there is really beyond me. None of our medium tanks went down. But as we can see, this is a 48%er and I feel very much like Moses on my team. So I'm just trying to find some angles here. The 1946 declares us idiots and then leaves. And here we go. This is a good example of clutch shots. See the aim time on the Conqueror there? Yeah, basically no aim time. 120mm gun with 1.9 second aim time. The .33 accuracy really shone through. So I can see that there's an Su-152 on the east. So I decide to relocate. I want to be able to put shots up across the valley. I figure out he's still outside my maximum shooting range, so to say. Now we can see him. And that is enough. Again, see the aim time? Basically no aim time until the tank is fully aimed. I decide to shoot the Su-152 again, even though the IS-3 I probably should have shot. I really want to take that Su-152 out, and unfortunately we failed to get the shot on the IS-3, but I fire a blind shot at the Su-152 in his last known position. So there's a T-54 against a Tiger II. There's no artillery on the enemy team. And that's very significant. That means that the Su-152 and the IS-3 are in quite strong locations up there, if I'm very honest. However, I spot an 87 and really, the 87 is not bouncing the Conqueror. That 87 showed me. Looks like we hit his tracks or spaced armor and did some track damage there. Our third shell finishes him off. Again, note the excellent rate of fire of this tank. Its DPM is much, much higher than the E75, for example. So I see that the IS-3 is looking at me. Uh-oh. The IS-3 misses, and the Su-152 bounces. Quite a fortunate bounce. Can't quite see what gun he's using at the moment. We knew where he was and we fired a perfectly aimed shot, but it looks like we hit his gun mantlet. And he's still hanging there, he's chilling. He's not chilling any longer. So I angle my left track inwards. I want to go out and try and get this IS-3, and he fires at me. We hit him with our great accuracy, but in this kind of a position he is very, very strong. That shell went a little low, unfortunately. I think I hit the ridgeline. And he manages to escape just before we reload. I decide that I don't have effective shots on that IS-3, and I pull back. So now I decide that this is a bad engagement for me. I've got an IS-3 shooting down on me who's basically hull down. I've got no artillery that can dig the IS-3 out. I've got a T-54 below me and a Tiger II, who really, the T-54 should kill the Tiger II most of the time in that situation. So I'm going to try and change the engagement. Just going to speed up the game a little bit here for you guys. Knowing that there's no artillery, if I go far east, there's no way that their mid-ridge can hit me. So I'm just aiming for the IS-3 in case he spots me. I do have 6th sense in this tank, and I'm not spotted. I'm not spotted. I go and sit in the bush. I'm still not spotted, so I decide, let's do it. Let's get this T-54 out. It is time for some death from above. In just 5 seconds. No. So I obviously took a look there for the IS-3, still thinking that he's going to come out and poke. And remember that I've got very good view range, 400 meters, and fair enough his camo rating is probably a lot higher than me in the IS-3. But my view range, I should be able to spot him before he spots me as long as he's moving. So there's the IS-3. I decide to poke down. The T-54 is tunnel visioning. And in my opinion, it's kind of worth it. And I know that I'm going to reload before the IS-3 does. And it looks like he realized that too, so he pulled back. I'm hoping he comes out and be cheeky again. I fire a nice shot in there, and there you go, there's another 400 off his health. Right now, I don't think he can see me anymore. I think it was the T-54 that was spotting me for him. Off the top of my head, the IS-3 has got 350 meters view range, which is one of the weaknesses of the tank. Whereas the Conqueror has 400 meters. So I should be able to spot him before he spots me. So, half the game has gone by. I've got 4 kills and 3,000 damage. And I just saw how many tanks they have to the north. So I decided that it's time to man mode this. Gonna speed up the game a little bit here. And it's time to put some pressure up. So I do have 6th sense in this tank. I decide that let's just do it. I wanted to use the momentum to get round the corner as quickly as I can. And I still haven't been spotted. Wonderful. I have counted most of the enemy tanks to be up north. We know that the ISU-152 is up there. We know that the T-28 prototype was last spotted at the rocks at C6. I want to get up to this ridge line that you see myself advancing to be able to get shots across. Now this is where the Conqueror starts to shine. Long-range engagements. I wait for the shot that I knew that would penetrate the ISU-152 when I've got his side. And that is one of the most dangerous tanks you could ever possibly meet at tier 8. Fortunately, our shell completely wafts there, goes very high and left. And we can see the enemy team is rushing. So I zero in, get an absolutely clutch shot there off on the IS-8. That pretty much could be game winning, taking out one of their tier 9 tanks before he was able to get up to the other flank. We see the ISU again, and unfortunately the shell goes wide again. We hit his track. We know he's still there. I decide to load some APCR rounds now because I know the game is getting very tight and I would quite like to win this. And I am hunting for my top gun. So I really want to find that ISU. I'm just sitting in the bushes and waiting. I thought for a second there that the T-28 had spotted me, but then I realized that he hadn't. And he's getting spotted from across the valley by the other T-28 prototype. So I'm looking at what the IS-3 is doing. I really want to engage these tanks one by one. I saw that the IS-3 had his back to me there. So the IS-3 is not focused on me right now. I think the IS-3 might be thinking that I'm still going to come up the other slope. They haven't spotted me here, yet. So here we go, let's do this. I shoot the first one on the approach, which was a bad decision. I really thought that I could have penetrated his side armor there. Next one I fire, and I've jammed his turret ring. Look, he can't turn his turret. I shoot one on the track. I think this is where I just figured out that his turret ring was jammed. And I put the extra shell into him, loading my AP rounds again. So I decide to load APCR again because I'm engaging in IS-3 and this game is very close. I side scrape the IS-3 and he realizes what will happen. So now I've got a better angle of approach. With the APCR rounds, he can't really bounce me, even if I hit at the cheeks of his turret. And we finish him off. So here we go. Oh, we bounced the ISU 152. Let's just take a quick look at where that one hit. Looks like that one must have landed on our turret ring there, maybe? And we put one clutch shot into the ST1. And right now I'm thinking, oh, can it be? And I fire off my APCR round in a hope to try and hit the STI before he retreats. This game's still very close. With only 2 minutes left, I'm really hoping that the STI comes out again. Or that the T28 prototype and the AMX 5100 who are on full health can take him out. So thankfully he decides to reverse and oh, we put one into his turret. Finishing off the game in style. And let's take a look at some post-game stats. So we picked up 4,320 experience for our double. That's a very meaty game for a tier 9 heavy tank. And we got a Radley-Walters and a Top Gun. We did 6,094 damage there. That was a pretty big game for a tier 9 heavy tank. I have had 2k games in the Conqueror before, but I had to breach 2,150 to get the mastery badge. We missed a few shots. I didn't feel like the gun was doing itself justice. The .33 accuracy is fully capable of engaging enemies at the ranges that I was showcasing, but we can see of the 23 shells that we hit, 21 of those did damage. Really, this tank has got massive penetration for its tier, just like an M103, and if you hit the target, it generally goes in. One thing I must mention is that the Conqueror uses the 20 pounder until you get the 120mm. Now the 20 pounder, you can make it work in good matchups, but it's very hard to use the 20 pounder in high tier matchups in the Conqueror because it doesn't have the speed or the maneuverability to really outflank its opponents. However, I recommend trying to get that 120m as quickly as you can. I love this Conqueror. It's got to be one of my favourite tanks in the game for its sheer brutality. I really feel that there isn't a tank that I can't penetrate frontally with this gun, and I feel like I have the aim time and the accuracy to hit the enemy before they hit me. The rate of fire is very useful for when you're making engagements against, for example, E75s, IS-3s, all the IS series tanks with their 122mm, because you can fire twice and still have enough time to pull back before they can hit you twice. So effectively you're doing 800 damage for every time you take a shell, which, for example, for the E75 is 490, against an E75 which fires 3.82 rounds a minute with 490 alpha. What this means is that the Conqueror has 25% extra DPM over the E75, but it doesn't have the armor. If you want a tank that's ruthless and dangerous, and you want to rely on your gun rather than your armor, then think about picking up the Conqueror. You're gonna love it. So I hope you've enjoyed this review. I live stream on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby on Tuesdays, Thursdays and Sundays. And if you want to know more about me, then check out the description below for links. As always guys, you've been epic, thanks a lot for watching, and hopefully I'll see you soon.